And he writes that enough harassment of someone who is on the thin edge anyway is usually enough to cause his professional demise, if possible, ruin him utterly. And he continues by saying, make it rough. The rougher, the better. And so the Scientology litigation juggernaut with armies of lawyers conducts litigation blitzkriegs and wars of attrition. He also writes that Scientology should sue in America because in America, as a general rule, the loser does not pay, as in Europe. And the cost of Scientology litigation in America can be astronomical. In my experience, it ranges from $750,000 to $7 million to litigate a Scientology case. The Time magazine case was reportedly $7 million, and it did not even go to trial. Scientology recently raided the homes of its critics and seized their computers, an action which resembled the burning of the books. One of those cases, the FactNet case, has so far cost $3 million, and it does not go to trial until next year. The Fishman-Gertz case, which involved allegations of Scientology-related financial fraud, instructions to commit murder, and instructions to commit suicide, cost nearly $2 million. Fair game is even applied to opposing lawyers in litigation. And lawyers who deal with Scientology litigation have to deal with other policies written by Mr. Hubbard. For example, Mr. Hubbard wrote a document called On Control and Lying. In that document he writes that the only way to control a person is to lie to him. And Scientology has training routines, or TRs. And so there is a TRL, or training routine, lying. And there are documents called Hatting the Witness, and Addendum to Hatting the Witness, which teaches a witness how to testify according to Scientology's requirements. And a Scientologist will be punished, perhaps with the RPF, if he testifies against a Scientologist or the interests of Scientology. The harassment of lawyers who dare fight Scientology is so rough that the American Lawyer magazine quoted one lawyer of many saying that life was too short to litigate against the church. And former Scientology lawyer Joe Yanni was quoted in the 1991 Time magazine article as saying the church's litigation hands were so dirty that it should be denied equity in every court of law. And former senior Scientologist Vicky Asnerin was quoted in the same article as saying this is a criminal organization day in and day out. And Scientology harassment of opposing lawyers is so bad that there is less than a handful of lawyers in America today who will take cases against the so-called church. And I am one of that handful of lawyers, and I'm grateful to Ms. Kuberta for inviting me here today to talk about it. Thank you for your patience and time.
Vielen Dank für Ihre Geduld und für Ihre Zeit.
Mein Name ist Ralf Burmeister, ich bin Rechtsanwalt hier in Hamburg, vertrete auch zum Teil Scientology-Aussteiger, und ich möchte eine Frage an den Kollegen richten, wie es sich mit der Verschuldung von ausgestiegenen Scientologen verhält.
I was confused between deaths and debts. There are both.
Beides trifft zu.
There is a lawyer in Los Angeles, Ms. Toby Plevin, who spent a number of years representing former Scientologists in refund actions. She was harassed so badly that she will no longer take such cases. There is a refund case proceeding at the moment in Northern California. A Jane Scott is suing her former husband for her share of the family property. Under California law, a husband and wife share equally in the property accumulated during the marriage. During her marriage, her Scientology husband gave a lot of property to Scientology. Some of it has not been used for services and remains on deposit with the organization. Scientology has responded by saying it was given to the organization by the husband, so therefore she has no claim. That reflects the attitude of Mr. Hubbard himself. In his 1982 will, he provided for his wife, but in his 1986 will, written one day before his alleged death, he eliminated her from his will. Subsequently, Scientology entered into some form of settlement with her, but she is restricted from speaking about it.
Mein Name ist Wendelburger Mack, ich komme aus Baden-Württemberg und leite die EBIS in Baden-Württemberg. Und ich habe eine Frage an Herrn Berry. Gibt es Fälle in den USA, die ich selbst erlebt habe in meiner Familie? Mein Bruder wurde erhängt in seiner Werkstatt gefunden. Er war Mitglied bei Scientology. In dieser Zeit wurden 75.000 Mark abgenommen, die wir gefunden haben als Belege. Ist es in den USA auch schon an den Tag gekommen, dass sich ein Scientologe oder als Ex-Scientologe, der ja, wie soll man sagen, als Kritiker aufgetreten ist, weil er Geld zurück wollte, dann erhängt wurde von der Organisation. Dazu gibt es auch eine Anweisung von L. Ron Hubbard vom 16. Mai 1965. Wenn die Technologie von L. Ron Hubbard nicht hineingeht, und er war ja dann Kritiker, dann hängen wir die Leute vollständig.
I'm very sorry to have heard about your son. There is one instance in the US where money has been withdrawn from a deceased Scientologist bank account, and that is the Lisa McPherson case. As for what Mr. Hubbard wrote in 1965, I am not familiar with that, but I am familiar with the concept of black Dianetics reverse processing and driving people into psychotic breaks, or PTS type 3, according to Scientology jargon. In the Fishman case, we developed evidence of Scientology using reverse processing to create a psychotic break. Lisa McPherson is an example of how Scientology handles a psychotic break. Psychotic breaks apparently occur regularly in connection with the OT3 processing. This is when a Scientologist learns for the first time about the story of Xenu, body thetans, and clusters. And instead of referring a person having a psychotic break to psychiatric or medical assistance, Mr. Hubbard requires that the introspection rundown be used. And the introspection rundown is also called the isolation rundown or baby watch, and was used on Lisa McPherson, and she eventually died. Again, in the Fishman case, former Scientologist and mission holder Bent Corydon, who wrote a book called Messiah Madman, provided some testimony about the introspection rundown. He testified that he had been required by Scientology to baby watch a Scientology doctor. The Scientology doctor had joined the organization in Los Angeles and been transferred to Clearwater in Florida. He performed an operation on a Scientologist in a motel room with Scientologists as medical assistants. The patient died, and the doctor had a psychotic break and was sent to Bent Corydon to be baby watched. And there are a number of Scientology internal documents we have which describe baby watches in England. That's an example of Scientology being engaged in the practice of medicine. Another example is the document NOTS 34, which a federal judge in Northern California has ordered a Mr. Henson not to deliver to the Federal Drug Administration in the United States.